to believe that domestic cats haven't always been part of our lives and graced our homes, whether as a farmyard mouser or simply as a kitchen companion. In fact, domestic cats were only introduced into Europe around the time of the Battle of Hastings. Since then, the household cat has departed remarkably little in behaviour from its ancestors. Unlike dogs, cats have kept their independence and still revert to the feral or wild state with very little encouragement. And of course, every self-respecting feline still retains its hunting instincts. It's often thought that the domestic cat is a descendant of the European wild cat, but this animal is quite untamable. Many have tried to keep one as a pet and failed. It seems far more likely that this domestic tabby originated from a quite different line, from the wild cat of Africa. The African wildcat certainly looks remarkably similar to the domestic tabby, though it is slightly larger. It spends most of the day resting and sleeping in the shade, behaviour familiar to all cat owners. Like most members of the cat family, it's solitary and prefers to hunt after nightfall. But wildcats do sometimes hunt during the day if the weather is cool. It often lurks in reed beds near waterholes, where it has a chance of creeping up on unsuspecting birds that come down to drink. It approaches using a ground-hugging run and then inches forward slowly to within striking distance of its prey. Unlike the European wildcat, the African wildcat doesn't shun man and often lives close to farms and villages. Over 4,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians bred from the ancestors of this wildcat population to produce the domestic cat that we know today. In ancient Egypt, cats became objects of a passionate cult and were held sacred to Bast, the goddess of pleasure and fertility. At the death of a cat, the entire household went into mourning, and the small corpse was embalmed and carried to the temple of Bast. Cats were considered so sacred that the Egyptians often risked their own lives to rescue a cat from danger. The practice of cat worship has perished alongside the Egyptians, but we still delight in the domestic cat. But the feline hunters of Africa that people consider most typical are the lions. Lions are unique in many ways. They're the most social of all the cats. The male's chief role in the pride is to defend the territory and females from other males. In lions, as in all cats, the female is smaller than the male. Male lions use their extra bulk to oust the females from a carcass. It's suggested that the mane gives the male the appearance of daunting size and strength without the drawbacks of increased weight. A lion pride usually consists of about 10 adult females, their offspring, and about 4 males. Lions certainly resemble other cats in spending most of the day resting together in the shade. The core of the pride consists of about 4 closely related females which grew up together within it. The breeding males within the pride are also related and probably arrived as a bachelor group a few years ago and took over the pride by force. A lioness will often allow another female's cub to suckle from her. This is almost unheard of among most other mammals, where the mother is extremely intolerant of another female's offspring. But as these cubs are the offspring of a close relation, the lioness is feeding cubs that still carry many genes identical to her own. It's rather like an aunt bringing up her nephews and nieces. The lionesses breed throughout the year, and the cubs within each litter continue to suckle until they're 6 months old. By the time the cubs are 2 years old, the lioness produces her next litter. The older cubs will be able to feed themselves at the carcass by then. In this way, the cubs within a lion pride always have plenty of companions and older brothers and sisters as playmates. It's believed that the spots on the cubs' coats indicate a distant ancestor in common with the leopard, probably a small forest-dwelling creature which followed its prey out onto the plains during the rise of the ungulate herds. It's the female that makes most of the kills within a pride. Perhaps the lion's mane makes him too conspicuous. Lions are most successful when hunting upwind, but in common with most cats, sight is more important to lions than smell. When several lions hunt together, they often fan out to encircle the prey, cutting off possible escape routes. Waterholes are favourite places for an ambush. Though lions can reach a maximum of 35 miles an hour, their prey is usually much faster, so lions must use stealth to approach within 100 feet of their prey. From that distance, they can charge and pounce before it outruns them. Waiting for the right moment may take many hours. The lionesses must be patient. But an inexperienced male charges out too soon, and the setup is spoiled for the waiting lionesses. But they will continue to hunt from this waterhole. The bulk of the lion's prey consists of the larger antelope, wildebeest, and zebra. During the dry season, these animals migrate to areas where the rain can be expected to bring fresh new growth. The lion pride is trapped within its territory and can't follow the herds as they leave its hunting range for better pastures. During periods of severe drought, this can produce quite devastating results in the resident pride. There are no cubs. They were the first to fall victim to starvation, and the females will soon follow, unable to compete with the larger males for what little game remains. In contrast, a female cheetah often includes the annual migration routes of her prey within her home range, though her movements are restricted while she's bringing up her cubs. Like most other cats, female cheetahs are solitary and bring up their cubs unaided. During the first 6 weeks, they remain hidden in the grass. By about 3 months, the cubs are fully weaned and follow their mother on hunts. They've already learned to wait, patiently hidden in the scrub, while she searches for impala or Thompson's gazelle. She watches the herd attentively before beginning to stalk. The cheetah is well adapted for her distinct method of hunting. The slender build and flexible spine enable her to take astonishingly long and rapid strides. Permanently bared claws give extra purchase like spiked running shoes. Unlike the lion, she can outrun her prey. Though able to reach 60 miles an hour, the cheetah lacks stamina, and she must catch up with her prey within a few hundred yards or give up the chase. Cheetahs, especially females with cubs to feed, make almost twice as many successful kills as lions or leopards. Cheetahs are able to maintain a relentless hold on their suffocating prey while breathing through enlarged nasal passages themselves. They often lose their prey to other predators, and however exhausted, they'll always try to drag the carcass to a safe hiding place. She allows the cubs first access to the carcass, while she keeps a wary eye open for scavengers. Unlike lions, cheetahs never return to a carcass, so they must gorge themselves at one sitting. Luckily, this time, no other predator appears on the scene, and they can feed in peace. Lions and cheetahs may occasionally climb up into the branches of a tree for a better view of the surrounding countryside, but the leopard is the only large African cat to feel truly at home there. It has a rather macabre habit of dragging all its kills up into the canopy of a favourite tree and draping them over the convenient branches, so that the tree forms a cool, leafy larder. In this way, the leopard can return to feed on a carcass whenever it likes, as it's well beyond the reach of other predators and scavengers. The leopard normally preys on small antelope and birds, though it does sometimes include another feline relation in its diet, the serval. The serval is less nocturnal than the African wildcat and often prowls around in broad daylight. These kittens are practicing their hunting skills. The serval seems to have an extremely long neck and legs in proportion to its size. It needs the extra height when hunting small rodents and lizards, which lurk beneath the grass stems. It often pauses for a few seconds and tenses, listening for a faint rustle in the grass before making an elastic leap in its direction. This is unusual among cats, where sight normally dominates over hearing. Small cats are particularly sensitive to high-frequency sounds such as rustles and squeaks. All cats use their ears for communication with one another as well as hearing, but none can match up to the caracal, whose ears have evolved into an exquisite mobile signalling device, topped by 2-inch-long black tassels. Even the name of the species derives from a Turkish word meaning black ear. Like the leopard, the caracal climbs well and sometimes carries its kill up into the branches of a tree where it can feed undisturbed. But it never stores food as the leopard does. It prefers dry scrub and acacia woodland and gives way to the serval cat in all areas where there's tall grass for most of the year. In Africa, the caracal also lives around the margins of the Sahara and in the Kalahari Desert. It's sometimes known as the desert lynx, though it's smaller than a lynx with a long, slender body. Like the wildcat, it will sometimes hunt by day in cool weather, and it's renowned for its ability to strike birds down in mid-flight, sometimes leaping 6 feet into the air. In order to avoid confrontation with lions, which sleep during the hottest part of the day, the cheetah often makes its kills around mid-morning or early afternoon. But unfortunately for her, this overlaps with the period when vultures are fully active and soaring on daytime thermals. If she's made her kill in the open grasslands, it'll soon be spotted by the aerial scavengers. A handful of vultures are unable to drive a cheetah off its carcass, but a solid phalanx of waiting figures is more disturbing to a cheetah, which is the most nervous and timid of the African cats. The vultures have attracted the attention of other scavengers, such as jackals, which hang about on the fringes looking for a chance to run in and steal a morsel from the carcass. The female and her cub put on a brave attempt to defend their hard-won spoils. But while their attention is distracted by the jackal, the vultures see their chance to move in. The cheetahs have no hope against a mob like this. Finally, they give up and leave the vultures to crowd in on the carcass in a shrieking mass. This is the main reason why cheetahs have to make so many more successful kills than lions or leopards. They have to compensate for the regularity with which they're driven from their kill before they even have time to swallow a few mouthfuls. There'll be nothing worth returning to here once the vultures have finished squabbling over the spoils. The cheetahs move off to rest in the shade. It'll probably be many hours before the female will attempt to make another kill. So far, every African cat we've seen has been a hunter of the plains. But some small cats, such as the elusive golden cat, choose to live in remote forests, emerging only at night to hunt tree hyraxes and rodents. The golden cat is about twice the size of a domestic cat, but is considerably more powerful and can bring down small duiker or pygmy antelope. It often shares its habitat and prey with the leopard. The leopard also relies on cover. It needs to find shade during the heat of the day. Leopard cubs are vulnerable to attack from lions, hyenas and baboons. They spend most of their time in hiding, waiting for their mother to return from a kill. When she returns, the long hours of inactivity are punctuated by explorative forays into the undergrowth, though they're never out of their mother's watchful gaze. Like cheetahs, the female leopard brings up the cubs entirely on her own. Her coat blends in perfectly among the dappled leaves and shadows. In fact, there's a great deal of variation in the leopard coat colour, ranging from pure black to stripes. No two leopards share the same pattern of spots. Leopards lack speed and stamina, so they prefer to hunt in thick cover. Once camouflaged against the leaves, the leopard melts into the background and becomes invisible to its prey. Though most leopard kills take place at dawn or dusk, occasionally the perfect chance presents itself during the day. The leopard is renowned for her stealth. She glides forward in absolute silence, each footfall muffled by the soft pads on her feet and the sheathed claws. Still unaware of any danger, the dik-dik continues browsing on fallen seed pods. Meanwhile, the leopard has discovered the perfect place from which to launch her attack. Tensing herself, a slight rustle betrays her presence. A warning bark of alarm, but it comes too late. She strikes with claws extended, followed by an accurate bite to the back of the neck. Her next concern is to find a safe place to conceal herself and her booty. A deep crevice among the boulders provides her with the perfect retreat. The leopard, in common with all other cats, is believed to have had small beginnings. It's thought that all cats evolved from an animal similar to the genet over 50 million years ago. The genet is placed in the mongoose family, although it has so many feline characteristics that it's often referred to as the genet cat. It shares the slender build, binocular vision and retractile claws with the cat family, and stalks rodents, birds and insects like a cat. Perhaps all modern cats owe their feline origins to an ancestor very like the genet. But the future of today's African cats is not so certain. The continuing destruction of woodland by elephants is driving the leopard into decline, and the cheetah, which once included India in its range, is now restricted to a few small pockets in Africa as more of its savannas are turned over to agriculture.
10 years ago, a series of events took place in Luangwa National Park in Zambia, which was to have unforeseen consequences far into the future. It started with the hippos. One of the old Oxbow lagoons is dotted with them. This was once part of the river, but now it's a separate lake, covered in thick Nile cabbage. The hippos don't eat the cabbage itself, but the waterweed that grows amongst it. Herons and jacanas hang round them, snapping up small creatures disturbed as the giants feed. The hippo population has now recovered, but the hippos had a severe setback in between. Although hippos are not really gregarious, during the dry season they are crammed together in whatever water remains in the river. At this time they are very susceptible to infectious diseases. In 1987, a fifth of Luangwa's hippos, 4,000 of them, died in an outbreak of anthrax. The crowds are unavoidable. Hippos must wallow in mud or water to keep damp throughout the hottest part of the day. They are martyrs to sunburn, as well as dehydration. Camerawoman Cindy Buxton has returned to Luangwa to discover if this catastrophe has had any impact on the rest of the park's wildlife since she last filmed here. What she and her assistant Paula Coulter discovered was totally unexpected. 15 years ago, elephants had been the cause of what seemed to be a disaster to the park's vegetation. 100,000 of them roamed a valley 500 kilometers long. Mopani, winterthorn, baobab, they strip or ring bark the lot. It's the same with the last great concentrations of elephants everywhere in Africa. The difference in Luangwa Valley is that the elephants were left to sort out their own problems without man's interference. Back then, it was hard to say how the battle between elephants and trees would eventually work out. Certainly parts of the woodland, especially the Mopani woodland, were already suffering as if from continual bombardment. They had begun to resemble those shattered treescapes of World War I. In some parts of the valley, the same landscapes are still there. An area like this, which has been flooded since the devastation, is now covered with a baked hardpan, which prevents any tree seedlings from growing. The legacy of the elephants is still to be seen in damaged baobab trees standing about the park. Their trunks are holed and scarred, but they can still transmit enough sap to keep the trees alive. After all, the baobab has evolved to withstand the attention of elephants. Sadly, these attentions are less now. Luangwa's 100,000 elephants are today reduced to 10,000, not by a natural decline, but by poaching. The slaughter increased the number of elephants without tusks. The condition is hereditary. About 1 in 10 of the herd were always tuskless. Since the poaching, it's more than a quarter of the population. The poachers shot everything with ivory, leaving mainly tuskless animals to breed. The average age of the leading females has fallen from 70 to 20. The traditions of elephant society, once taught to the young by senior females, will have to be built up again virtually from scratch. Anthrax is always present in Luangwa. This elephant still has its tusks, so it has not been killed by the poachers. The park authorities need to establish the cause of its death. When the lions and the other scavengers have finished with the corpse, they come to investigate. The first job with any elephant that dies of natural causes is to remove the tusks into safekeeping so that they don't fall into the hands of ivory traders. At the same time, the vet takes samples of tissues to test for disease. Everyone who touches the carcass must wear protective gloves, and after the tusks have been removed and samples taken, they are carefully cleaned with disinfectant. The precautions proved necessary. This elephant died of anthrax. The staff will now keep a careful watch for any more victims. The shrinking pools take their toll of animals weakened by the long daily march. The trapped animals will die slowly of thirst, unless a kindly predator finds them and puts them out of their misery. As it turned out, this young buffalo was more fortunate than most, having been discovered by people before the hyenas found it. The park biologist darts it with a tranquilizer, and the combined efforts of the park staff finally drag it clear of what would have become its last wallow. When it has been winched out of the mud and restored to dry land, the biologist gives it an antidote. One animal always does well from the misfortunes of others, the vulture. Circling high above the park, they spot the corpses of the fallen from a great distance away, homing in on any sign of a gathering of their own kind. After the 1987 anthrax outbreak, much of the hippo population was reduced into food for the scavengers in the park. The first to benefit were the crocodiles. The glut of hippo meat served to sustain their population. The surviving hippos occasionally take exception to the scavengers in their midst. Lions, too, are not above scavenging when they have the chance. The lions will stay close by to guard the carcass into the night. The greatest beneficiaries from the plague that struck down the hippos were the hyenas that roamed the valley at night. Although they are quite successful hunters, their main role in life is as scavengers. And in 1987, they came into their own. One lion can drive away a small raiding party, and crocodiles have an obvious advantage, being already in the water with the prey. When a lion decides to compete with a crocodile for food, the the hyenas are wise enough to take a back seat. In the long term, the hyenas benefited most of all from the glut of dead hippos. The population grew to a new high level and hasn't fallen since then. The puppies born in the boom years of 1987 and 88 are now grown to maturity and rearing young of their own. Although anthrax did not affect the hyenas, it killed off most of the hunting dogs in Luangwa. The loss of the hunting dogs may have contributed to the hyenas' great and continuing success. Their packs have multiplied to cover the whole valley, causing problems for the leopards that are one of the main predators. More often than before, packs meet and skirmish as they roam through the bush. A pack on the move at dusk is setting out to scour its territory for carrion, or for hunting leopards, and Cindy and Paula are on their trail. Leopards are solitary and wary predators. They often hunt in thickets and dense vegetation and are much harder to find than the hunters of the open plains. Cindy and Paula have come across a female who seems unaware of their presence. She has found the scent of a herd of impala. She begins to stalk her prey. She moves purposefully towards the herd of impala. The kill takes place in thick scrub, but this is little protection from any hyena packs that might be patrolling the area. Now that it's dark, the hyenas will not be far away. Her first aim must be to get the impala up a tree where they can't reach it. She is carrying an animal which is almost her own weight, but she soon has it safely stowed. Now she can relax and consider fetching her cubs to share the meal. First, though, she tries to hide the evidence of the kill. She covers the blood with dust in the hope that its scent will be less conspicuous to hyenas. Before long, the cubs follow her out of the bush. The cub is 6 months old and fully weaned, but it can get little out of the carcass. Its mother has wedged it awkwardly in the tree, and the cub can't get a proper grip on it. But at least the food is safe. Already the first patrolling hyena has found the site of the kill. The increased threat from hyenas arose after the great food glut of 1987, when they were able to gorge themselves on hippos killed by an outbreak of anthrax. Today there are so many of them that nowhere in the valley is safe from their attentions. But this leopard now has both cubs with her in the safety of the tree. Her prey is secure, but another leopard has lodged its kill much lower in another tree nearby. It is a temptation for any passing hyena. But it is beyond reach. Chewing the tree in frustration at its inability to reach the food, the hyena tries another approach. Hyenas are not built to climb, and the leopard seems to have been a fine judge of how far its competitor can reach. Another night, another leopard kill. This time, a clan of hyenas patrolling the area finds the leopard before she can carry her prey to safety. As the first hyena approaches, the leopard makes an escape. There is no point in getting into a fight. If the leopard were to be injured, she would have even less chance of feeding her cubs. She must leave the kill to the hyenas and go hunting again. Two strange hyenas appear on the scene. There is little protest from the blood-stained five as the intruders remove the remains of the carcass. The robbers trot off into the night with their booty. Dominant animals are usually larger than subordinates, but this may be because dominant individuals have freer access to food. The original thieves had nothing left to do but lick up the last remaining bloodstains. Nearby, Cindy and Paula find another leopard up a tree, watching the enemy below. It's directly above a hyena den, where a pack is rearing puppies. Suddenly, a hyena arrives in the clearing, carrying the remains of an impala. Could this be one of the intruders which had stolen the kill they had seen earlier? The leopard makes its escape while the hyenas are distracted by the arrival of food. For all their ferocity towards each other, adult hyenas are very gentle with their young. Despite trying to pull an enormous piece of booty into the den for its own private consumption, the puppy wasn't punished for its outrageous behaviour. As a result of the constant harassment by hyenas, the leopards are changing their feeding habits. They now tend to concentrate on immature antelope, which are easier to carry. They usually disembowel their victim before climbing a tree to make it even lighter. Cindy has come to realise that it only takes one tiny change to alter the whole balance of power within the park. But Luangwa has endured countless pressures of drought and disease, and always the wildlife has found its own equilibrium. The leopards of Luangwa are still managing to hold their own despite their newly discovered conflict with the burgeoning hyena population. The hyenas themselves go from strength to strength. Since the hippo plague, they've never looked back. As for the elephants, they are increasing in numbers again as poaching declines. Unlike the ill-fated black rhino and the hunting dog, protection should guarantee them a secure future. The balance of nature shifts this way and that under the influence of disease and drought and human activities. But the park has an underlying stability which should enable it to retain its place among the jewels of wild Africa.